What's up, all you real bees? Magic Pat here. Sitting here getting ready to fix up this shark fishing pole. This is my dad's shark fishing setup right here, and I'm gonna pretty much take it apart and clean it and everything. But it got me thinking. So I just recently lost the biggest speckled trout I've ever seen in my life on this last Keaton Beach trip. And I'm sitting here working on this pole thinking about it, and it reminds me of when Real Beast kind of got its start and how that all came about. So this is going to be our first official story time, I guess you could say, for Real Beast. I'm going to take you back into the past a little bit and kind of show you some clips of things that we've never really showed before. So back when Real Beast got its start, it was really officially started by AMAC. We were fishing on the pier in Panama City, the county pier, and we were shark fishing. And we actually hooked into a couple of really nice sharks while we were out there. They turned out to be spinner sharks and a couple of black tips. And he came up with the phrase Real Beast. So kind of from that point on, that was our thing. That's kind of how we got our name started, was just that little phrase, like, we're out here catching real beasts. And we thought about it, was like, well, that's not too bad of a name for a fishing team. Back in the day, it's really only a couple of years ago, when shark fishing was just really like peaking and getting to the high point, everybody had to have a team. There's every kind of team name you can think of out there shark fishing. And of course, we were just like them. We wanted to have our own team. I've caught a bunch of really nice sized sharks in the past. I've caught some 9-foot hammerheads on spinning rods, caught some smaller tiger sharks, caught some smaller bull sharks, caught a bunch of really big black tips and spinner sharks, sandbar sharks. So it only seemed fitting for us to have a team name. So our first real official shark fishing trip, we actually went down to Panama City. It was about a year later. It was about a year later. We went down in June, just because June and July is the best time to shark fish. That's when there's more in the area chasing fish. Out there, the black tips and stuff are kind of getting over their breeding period. So the bigger sharks are coming in, kind of chasing the stragglers. So we figured we would go out and we would do our first Real Beast trip. So we took out the giant shark rods, big hooks. I mean, we actually used a hook that was a lot bigger than this. Back then, they didn't have the same rules that they do now. Even though it was still a circle hook, it was an offset circle hook. Now they have to be in line and everything. We'll go over that another day. But we decided we were going to go out there, put the big stuff to the test, put the name Real Beast to the test. So we put out the 14-aughts, the giant 80 wides. We put out, I think it was a whole Stingray. I paddled it out, I kayaked it out, and we had our first official run on one of the rods, and it was actually on the big golden 80 wide that is now AMAC's reel. I gave that to him so he could have his own shark fishing setup, and it was on. It was one of those magical bites where the reel was running. It made an amazing sound. AMAC got to see, what that's like. I've seen that for years. He's never seen that, so this was like a completely new thing for him. It's a new caliber of fishing, and like it was really showing him, I think, what Real Beast could be. Like, you could see the wheels turning in his head, and like it was already in mind. Once he established the name Real Beast, I could see something big coming from that. So it was a perfect hookup, in my opinion. I mean, we did everything that you could do right on this fish, and it immediately started smoking this 80 wide. Had a 100-pound braid on it, which is kind of light for a reel that size. And it was just running and running and running. We could not stop the fish. I have on sections on the reel, especially right here where the drag system is at. I had that 80 wide set at 20, 30, 40, and 45 pounds of drag before you could get to max. That's just how I had it set up. And we set the hook at 30 pounds of drag. I decided we were going to go ahead, make sure we have this fish. We're using a piece of bait about this big. It was ridiculous. I believe we either caught the stingray like a day before or somebody gave it to us. I can't remember. I want to say we caught the stingray, but we cut it in half, and so we had two chunks about this big. It was a big stingray. And the two shorter rods that were in close had gotten bites, but they never got any hookups. We actually pulled up some chunks of bonita. They had perfect little horseshoes cut right out of the side, cookie cutter style, from smaller sharks. This one went off, dropped it down to 30 pounds of drag. I waited until the pole bent down, cranked down on it until I couldn't crank anymore, and then I turned around and I ran up the beach to try to just take all the slack out of the line, set the hook, started fighting the fish. So we started watching the clock right then. I took up the battle first, just because it was my setup and everything. I wanted to make sure the shark was hooked. I was going to fight it in. We were going to try to get another bait out. So I wasn't really too worried about having to share this fight, because I figured we were going to do more, but it ended up being a completely different fight than what I'm used to. I've hooked giant sharks on the pier before, and you know immediately whether or not you're in trouble or not when you can't do anything with this fish. So I couldn't turn it. I couldn't get it to come in any closer. It was pretty much a stalemate for the first 10 minutes, which that's a long time, not being able to budge it. The way it was fighting, it was either a giant bull shark or it was a good sized tiger shark, because it was very lazy. It wasn't like high speed blistering runs. They were just constant though. They just would pull line off the reel, just one after another, just go, 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 and then it would stop, and then it would start up, and it would go again, not at high speed, but just a steady pace. And it was very heavy. It would just lean. You could feel it leaning on the line, pretty much like you're not going to budge me. And so back then, we didn't have a harness either. So, we were going to the gym all the time. We were lifting heavy. I've been fighting big fish my whole life, but I've been also kind of using the rail of the pier for a lot of it on these big reels to help with the pressure. So for the first time ever, we're fighting this fish just straight up, no harness, 30 pounds of drag. Well, after about 15, 20 minutes, I realized this fish is not coming in. He's steadily taking line off the reel. So I drop it down to 40 pounds. I think eventually I put it at 45. We never did try to max the reel out. I don't really like maxing big reels out like this. But we got it down to about 40 pounds of drag. And I fought it for another 10 to 15 minutes at 40 pounds. And it went from being fun to just excruciating pain. My forearms were swollen. You could see the veins standing up. My hands were starting to go numb. My back was going numb. I realized I'm not going to get this fish on my own. I don't have a harness. I can't take the pressure off of me. So I passed the pole off to AMAC, and he started fighting the fish. So he had been watching me, had been talking to him about it, did a great job. He was fighting this fish, and then, eventually it was the same thing. He started getting tired. This fish would not stop. There's no telling how big the shark was, because every time we would take in line, it would take line back off. I'd get 3-4 cranks in. It would take 2 or 3 rotations of the spool off. And it was ridiculously heavy. Like we struggled to try to pull this fish in. So his arms started getting blowed out. His back was getting blowed out. You could start hearing like the pain in his voice. So I took back over for him, and we swapped back and forth 4 times on this same fish. The very end of it, I had the rod, was holding it. He was standing in front of me so I could lean the rod on his back. Basically, the rod was coming over his shoulder. He was leaned back into it, and I was kind of leaned forward. And that was like pretty much where the end of the fight was at. We finally started making headway. We were getting the fish slowly to come in. It was almost like we were coaxing him in. Like he was kind of turn, and we'd get one crank. We'd kind of let him do his thing, and then we'd get another crank, then another crank. We were never budging this fish. We were just kind of shortening the distance between him and us. Like if he came in, we'd capitalize on it. We'd crank down and get a little extra line in. And so finally, you can see on this reel right here, we got braid on the spool, and then we have, the leader line. This is a shorter one just because, this is set up to fish off a boat. So this one's only about 30 foot long. But on the 80 wide, it was 150 yards of leader line. And I think we had 150 pound mono. 200 pound mono. So we had 150 yards coming up. We actually could see the knot coming. And so we knew, we were like, okay, 150 yards to go. So we got it on the reel, got it close. You could see the direction of the line on the rod. The angle was changing. It was starting to get deeper, which means we were getting it closer. Pretty much we had about 50 yards left to bring this fish in. And the worst thing possible could happen. It pulled off the hook. You literally could feel the hook just go whoop. So I don't think that shark was ever officially hooked. I feel like the whole entire fight, that hook was just sitting in his mouth, just sitting across, basically like this. And somehow or another, he got the right direction to where that hook just kind of rolled out of his mouth, because you could feel it drag, and then you felt this release, and it was the worst possible feeling ever. So we didn't want to believe it. This was our first official trip as Reel Beast. We wanted this to be like the flagship trip, you know what I mean? Like this was going to be the trip. And so I cranked down hoping that maybe sometimes they run at you real fast and you get slack, but there was nothing there. Then to add insult to injury, I lose a shark. I want to get the leader in. I want to look at it and see what happened. Can I see teeth marks in the hook? Is the point of the hook broke? Was the leader kinked? Did maybe the leader was messed up and it kept the hook from getting the right position? We didn't even get to check all that because the way he was fighting, we knew he was over the sandbar. He was on the last sandbar because the line that we had been reeling in was starting to get kind of chafed. So we knew it was hitting a sandbar. He popped off. We tried to reel it in the rest of the way, and it got hung on the sandbar. I'm guessing the hook just dug down into a shell into the sand, and we could not get it to come loose. We ended up breaking off a really good setup. It was one of my big shark setups. And that was it. Like, the disappointment from that trip hit so hard. We couldn't even look at the leader and see what happened, maybe try to get an idea. It was just 100% disappointment. However, it sparked a fire in both of us to continue Reel Beast into what it is now, which, I know we're still a small channel, but we're steadily growing and we're getting better at what we do. And so I feel like this could be a really good thing. And it started from losing the biggest fish of our lives. It's funny how something so sad like that could happen, but could cause this much growth. So, if you hook the biggest fish of your life and you lose it, it sucks. I've lost so many big fish in my life. I don't even like talking about it. I don't keep count because that's a very depressing number. But you gotta continue, because for every big fish that you lose, there's going to be one or two that you catch. And one of those could be the biggest fish that you've ever caught in your entire life. So you don't give up, you continue. And like I said, it sparked a fire in us. Like from that point on, Reel Beast, like we had to have more. Like I had to get out there, I had to film more. That was the first time really trying to film on the beach. My camera went dead. Somehow or another, salt water got into the camera. It didn't fry the battery, but it shorted it out. I had like no camera battery. Most of it was filmed off of a phone. So, yeah, it was something unique. And even though it sucked at the time, I'm kind of glad it happened, because, you know, it put a fire in us to continue doing what we do. So that's it for our first official story time. They're going to get a little bit better. I have a lot of other stuff that I can talk about. There's been other big fish that have been lost, big fish that have been caught, crazy things that happened on trips, like things that just don't even make sense. So, yeah, anyway, y'all stay tuned. We got more trips coming up. We got more short videos coming, more tutorials, more rod and reel reviews. So we're going to try to put out as many videos as we can. It's kind of a personal challenge. I've been trying to do a video a day because we're trying to grow the channel. We're trying to get to the point to where not only do we get monetized, but we can actually start doing more with our subscribers, with you guys, you know, the people that actually watch and care about the channel. I want to get to where I can start sending people on multiple trips a year, or come 2 trips with us. We're actually planning a shark fishing trip next year. I think maybe Joe from Chat Cast is going to come down with us. We're going to try to see if we can't get something set up. Put him on a really big catfish, because that's really what it is. Shark fishing is just grand catfishing. It's putting a bait on the bottom and waiting. But yeah, so that's it. I'm going to catch y'all back on the water. Peace.